Hi, I'm BJ Counsel, founder of UN50. As a retired police officer and executive, this job led me to my life's purpose. I served humans experiencing varying levels of crisis, trying to get jobs, housing, educational needs, health care, but due to personal barriers or overworked systems, these humans aren't able to obtain life's simple goal of just being stable. I believe if basic human needs are met, the need for law enforcement interactions are lessened.
All right, welcome back, everybody. For those folks that have always followed you and 50 on podcast and been supporting me over the years, thank you for returning. And for those of you that may be the first time that you joined you and 50, just a little bit about I'm a retired police executive with Durham PD, and I started you and 50 to teach individuals how to safely interact with law enforcement. But the conversations that we have on this aren't always centered around law enforcement. They're centered around other issues that, for me, believing that policing is not the solution to a lot of things that go on in the space and in local communities. So thank you for joining, and hopefully you'll continue. For those new, start coming on or listening to us, and those that have always been there for us, thank you very much for the continued stuff. So anyway, tonight we have Brian Scott, who is executive director of Our Journey. I'm gonna let him kind of definitely tell you about that, because I got introduced to him. If you listen to the previous podcast with Melissa Radcliffe at Our Children's Place, that I volunteer as part of her program for individuals who are parents who are incarcerated and returning to the community. And so I go in and do my presentation. I've been doing that for several years now. And she introduced me to Brian. And I appreciated that. And Brian and I have chatted a little bit, and we'll talk about what this relationship led to for his organization that I'm really proud about. And so the last series that you're listening to, as you know, is corrections, because individuals are returning to our community, and I want to be a part of helping them return safely and that transition that they're coming back into the community to help them be the citizens that they want to be. So Brian, thanks for joining us with me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So I want you to go ahead and take that dive and tell us about Our Journey, and then we'll get into a little bit of your background as well, but kind of let folks know what Our Journey is about, you being the executive director of the nonprofit.
Yes, thank you. So we will celebrate our third anniversary this coming February.
Wow.
So we launched in February of 2022. Our Journey is a statewide nonprofit reentry organization that wants to impact as many of the approximately 19,000 men and women who return every year from our state correctional facilities to all of North Carolina's 100 counties. So we're excited about the work we do. We're excited about the opportunities to partner with some great community leaders like yourself and others across the state who are either directly involved in welcoming people when they return from incarceration or are involved in ways that contribute to the solution. So thank you for having me on tonight. Look forward to a great conversation.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your background and why. I appreciate the saying Our Journey. So tell us a little bit about your journey and why the journey toward this nonprofit that you started.
Yes, thank you. So I was actually released from incarceration myself in 2021 after 20 years in prison. And when I was released, I was fortunate to return to a really good situation. I had a mother and father and a sister who had stood by me throughout the entire 20 years. My mom and dad welcomed me into their home. They gave me a queen size bed to sleep on, and made sure I had food and clothing. I got a job within about a month after my release.
Wow.
So a lot of the things that people really come out of prison needing, I had that already provided for me, thanks to the wonderful support I had from my family. The things that my family couldn't do for me, however, were more along the lines of the mental support and some of the spiritual needs that were related to being incarcerated and dealing with all of that. They would have loved to, but they had not been through it.
Yeah.
So the people that were there for me in that regard were the men that I had met during my incarceration.
Mm.
I spent most of my time of that 20 years, about 16 years at Nash Correctional Institution, the longest I've ever lived anywhere in one place my whole life. And I tell people prison is not the best place to go to meet friends, but when you do meet friends in prison, they are true friends and friends for life. And
Wow.
many of them had gotten out before me. I always kind of felt like I was the last one of our group to get out. So there were a lot of them waiting for me. They offered me their support. They offered me their love. Some of it was immaterial things. They would buy me, some clothes and some other things, but a lot of it was just, again, that emotional, that spiritual, that mental support. Texting me in the morning, first thing, asking me if there's, if I had any questions or anything I just wanted to get off my chest. Things again that nobody else could relate to really,
Right.
who had not been through that experience.
Wow.
And so about a little less than a year after I got out, we started talking amongst ourselves, this support group, this network of formerly incarcerated people. And, we just decided that we'd been part of the problem, and now we wanted to figure out a way to be part of the solution.
Wow.
And so the whole name, Our Journey, has significance because we believe that while we certainly appreciate all of the help and support that we get from people who have never gone through incarceration, we understand that those of us who have a responsibility to each other, and that this is really our journey. And so that was kind of the concept for the name.
Yeah.
And when we launched, we knew that we didn't, if somebody asked us, did you do it? How much market research did you do? And I said, well, we got locked up and we got out. And that was about the extent of it.
Right.
So we did know that we wanted to impact as many people as possible. And again, as I mentioned earlier, around 19,000 people released every year from our correctional facilities. How can we have an impact on, as many of that number as possible? And so from that, we decided, we want to focus really statewide. For the old expression, I don't know if your listeners remember it. If you're of a certain age, you heard it growing up, Murphy to Manio,
Right. Uh-huh.
Murphy in the west to Manio
Yes.
in the east,
Yep.
and everywhere in between.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I had it's a camp out it's an adult camp where you go do arts and all this kind of stuff out there, and it's near Murphy. And I went, and I was like, my God, I'm on the other end of North
Yes.
Carolina.
North Carolina is a long state. If you're driving from
Yes.
Murphy to Manio, that is a long haul.
Man, that's a hump.
But there's BJ, there's so many wonderful people across the state who
Yeah.
are doing work in their local communities,
Yes.
literally in Murphy and literally in Manio and in all of these other communities, both big and large. And it's been big and small. It's been a pleasure to get to know so many people who many of them do have lived experience. Many of them don't, but they're coming together, and it's just a wonderful community of reentry support across the state.
Cool. I want to go back to what you said first, because I I started kind of looking at corrections as somewhere that I really wanted to get into. And I started early. I just hadn't been able to tap into it like I want to. But that's a whole different conversation. But what another friend of mine was incarcerated, and he has a podcast. And one of the things I learned from that, listening to some of those stories, is that we forget that a lot of people who come out of that and don't have they don't have not necessarily the access to resources. They don't have the support, because one guy said that he was in foster care, which says almost immediately he got in trouble as a foster child. So when he got out, obviously the foster persons weren't there, and he didn't have parents. And I was like, oh my God, people don't think about that there's just so many levels of this, when you talk about you have this support with that, but people don't realize that some people are coming out of this and back into, and there's nothing there. Some people maybe, but then you also, I just can't even, it was just a mind-boggling kind of conversation when I heard that, because I obviously never thought about that.
Yeah, and again, I was just talking to my mother the other day, and just so grateful to them for the support that they gave me, and trying to imagine what it would have been like trying to rebuild my life had I not had that foundation. I get to go back into the prisons and talk to the guys, and I can remember a conversation at Craven Correctional where I was talking about how wonderful freedom is, and being able to walk in your bare feet across carpet and flip light switches on, whenever you want to, and get in a car and go where you want to go. And a gentleman raised his hand and he said, freedom is great, but you got to get there first.
Wow.
And I knew exactly what he meant. He wasn't talking about getting out of prison. He
Right.
was talking about what happens when you get out of prison. And freedom
Mhm.
isn't wonderful. It's overwhelming. You're living, in a tent or under a bridge, and you don't know where your next meal is coming from. Just talked to a formerly incarcerated a woman recently here in North Carolina, applied for 47 jobs before somebody would hire her. And so I look at my circumstance and
Mhm.
really do see myself as blessed and fortunate.
Mhm.
But it makes me appreciate even more, BJ, the people who have less resources than less support than I had, yet that determination and that willpower is so strong
Yep.
that they are going to overcome no matter what.
Yeah.
We need to give them more support. We need to
Yes.
remove some of these crazy obstacles.
Yes.
I'm really, really inspired by those stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that, because and that was another reason I try to diversify the conversations that I have, let people. I mean, we gotta we can't solve anything with some of these societal ills unless we give people second chances.
Right,
To hire somebody that they have to apply 47 applications, that's just, come on now.
right,
I mean, what is that about? And then you
right,
look at the system itself as to some of the individuals that are. I mean, you're talking drug sales, you're talking just things that, I mean, people you can't do drugs, right? I mean, you can't sell drugs. I get that, but to
right,
to hold somebody, in prison, and then they come out and you still continue. I mean, you talk about hearing the Manteo to Murphy thing. The thing is, as when I was little, you go to prison to be punished for that particular offense, right? But then when you come out, you're still being punished, and
right,
how fair is that to just continue to do that? You told me if I did this wrong thing, I was supposed to go to jail. Okay, I went to jail. Now what? Now I can't
right,
get a job. Now I can't go live over here because I've got a criminal history. It just
right,
compounds. And I think, I'm preaching to the choir, and I just need people to really understand how difficult and unfair this is. And I think I said this to you, and I know I said it to some of my friends. The only difference between me and you, Brian, is I didn't get caught.
right, right.
I mean, that
Yeah,
is, I mean, seriously, I mean, I can tell you some stuff, you'd be like, oh, and some of that stuff I did while I was the popo, you know what I'm saying? So, so
right.
yeah, so we gotta figure that out. Wow.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. We know that 95% of everybody who's incarcerated is going to return to our communities
Hmm.
at some point in time.
Yeah.
So what do we want? Do we want to continue to punish them and treat them like criminals, even
Right.
though they paid their debt to society? Or do we want them to become productive members and citizens of society?
Yes.
And we can't have it both ways. And so I know that there are people who say, they did this crime, they should continue to pay for the rest of their lives. And well, the problem with that is it impacts everybody, and when you force people to the margins of society, which is
Yeah.
what happens a lot of times,
Yes.
then they are in positions where they're going to do what they have to do to take care of themselves,
Exactly.
which often could lead to, somebody going back to prison. And we
Mhm.
hear that and we say, well, maybe that's where they should have been to start with. The problem with that is every time we talk about recidivism,
Ooh.
that cold word that we throw around,
Yeah.
we have to factor in more victims, and what do we want for our communities? We want our community to be safe and complete, and we can do a better job of making sure that people who paid their debts to society get that honest second chance and
Mhm.
get a chance to prove that they've learned and are ready to be part of society again.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. I mean, yeah, it's just really sad, and it's just frustrating. And people come out, and they're just like ready to go to work. I mean, just ready to get it done, and then they just
Right,
have all these obstacles, and I can understand that. I mean, a young lady that I know, her boyfriend had told me he had to sell pot a little bit. I mean, he didn't get caught, luckily, but he was selling pot
right,
to pay for a college application. You know what I'm saying? So
right,
people see, and I think that's another thing, when obviously my background, and people don't realize what we see as law enforcement. I mean, we see stuff. We see the real struggle of individuals, and
right,
people are thinking, oh, they're selling drugs. Well, yeah, they're selling drugs to try to help mama keep the lights on and food on the table.
right,
So
right.
let's have that conversation.
Exactly. And also when we think about reentry, a lot of times people who who are truly supportive of the whole concept of second chances, they have this faulty notion that if we can just help somebody through that first month or that first 90 days, but reentry is a lot more involved than just that. And it can sometimes be years and even, several years before a person really feels like he or she's fully reintegrated back into society. And, what we're trying to do around the state, in addition to helping our brothers and sisters, is kind of trying to change some of the narrative, which is why I'm so appreciative of the work you do and for inviting me on this podcast, because we got to get away from this notion that successful reentry looks like Brian Scott or Dennis Gaddy or Greg Singleton or some of these other, individuals who've gotten out of prison and gone on to,
Right.
start businesses and so forth.
Mhm.
I got a really good friend who's 3 years out, and it's all he can do to make ends meet.
Wow.
He's working 2 jobs. He's doing everything he can. And I look at him, and the average person would say, he's not a success yet. In my opinion, he is, because he's not doing the same things that had put
Right.
him in prison to start with.
Exactly.
Determined that he's going to do the right thing, no
Right.
matter how difficult it is. And
Right.
to me, that person is a success.
That is a success. And talking about that too, and you hope you're probably going to be edifying me tonight too, because it's all the thing that I continue to hear is the biggest issue is housing.
Yeah.
I mean that's I mean if I don't have
Yes.
a place to put my head down, then how can I be successful? And so what
Yes.
does that look like from your perspective? I mean, how can that be improved? I mean, what's it going to take for people to understand the first thing they need to do is give me somewhere to put my head down?
I travel the state, BJ, and it gets so frustrating to me how many times I drive past abandoned motels and abandoned elementary
Uh,
schools. And I'm just seeing, this space right here could be utilized. And it's not just people returning from incarceration that
right.
struggle with housing. We've got a housing crisis across,
Right.
all demographics,
Yeah.
just about. And
Mhm.
so it's the toughest thing that we face as an organization trying to help somebody.
Yeah.
And it gets even tougher if you're somebody who's going to have to register on the sex offender registry when you
Yeah.
get out, because now your options are even fewer.
Mhm.
And that's when you get marginalized and you get pushed to the side. And it's exactly what you said. I mean, if you don't have a stable place to live,
Mhm.
how reintegrated are you actually going to feel?
Right.
You need a stable place to live,
Yep.
to keep a job, and so many other things. So one of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with a wonderful organization in the Charlotte area called Crossroads Reentry. And we have a page on our website called Home Plan Assistance, and it's available for case managers, probation officers, friends and family, and even as self-referrals for people who've been released and find themselves homeless, to go and to give us the information we need. We work with Crossroads to try to find some possibilities for housing in
Mhm.
your area, whatever counties you list.
Right.
And we don't make any guarantees, because, as you said, it's such a tough problem,
Yeah.
but it's one way we're trying to help our correctional staff individuals find housing for people before they're released, as
Mhm.
well as some family members who have somebody coming up that's going to be released.
Right.
So you can go to our website. It's www.ourjourneytogether, and it uses the number two. So our journey, the number two, together.com. And you can click on home plan assistance, enter the information you need, and we'll give you some possibilities within 48 hours.
Cool. And we're going to have your information and your website, all that stuff will be included when we post the podcast. So we'll definitely
Great.
help for folks to do that. Yeah, I kind of want to stick with that homeless stuff too, because that's another conversation that in law enforcement, well, not necessarily law enforcement, but in the community, and the conversation I'm trying to have is, community, you're having us law enforcement go out and arrest people for being homeless.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the guy needs to go to the bathroom. Where is he going to go? He might come in your business, but you keep calling me to come and take care of that. But he ain't got nowhere to
Right.
go, boo. And so I'm out here arresting, or not me, but you know what I'm saying. Law enforcement's arresting people for being homeless. And
I
so,
know. It's absolutely crazy. 17% of everybody being released from North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections Care is released homeless. So they're taking to, the steps of the courthouse, the steps of the county jail, some, to their probation officers. And so they're being released homeless, but then you can turn around and arrest them for being homeless. It just,
Yeah.
and that just feeds
Yeah.
on their sense of hopelessness and help
Yes. Yeah.
and despair.
Yeah. It's like, make it make sense.
Right.
Yeah. Make it make
Right.
sense. So yeah, I think, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see, I'm stumbling because it just does not make sense. And actually, this is a community issue. It's like, where's the focus in the community paying attention to this? And especially for me, when these businesses, especially downtown people and community members,
Right.
are like calling the police for that, but don't want to do that work. I'm sure you remember or heard about and I keep repeating him, the Dallas shooting they had several years ago. And the Dallas police chief just said it out loud. He's like, society is putting social ills at the doorstep of law enforcement. And it don't work that way. Law enforcement wasn't
No,
built to do that. Law enforcement was not built for that. And
no,
until
you're right.
somebody says the right thing and does the right word, law enforcement just can't do it. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know what the magic pill is. It's just unfortunate, or not unfortunate, but it's fortunate that individuals like you are out here getting this work done in spite of it, and there are people that you're connecting with and trying to make a difference. So
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
no, I'm really glad that I got to meet you, and I don't know how much help I can be of you. So just kind of talk about what it is that you do. I want you to talk about the information because when Melissa told me about it and I met you, it just made perfect sense. I'm not going to say, I'll let you say what you do, but it was like, oh, duh.
Right.
Like, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, like I said, one of the things that we knew we wanted to do was impact as many of those 19,000 people. And how do you do that? That's a tall order. There's a lot of really wonderful work being done at the local level, but not so much statewide. So a few weeks after we launched in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and there were several reasons for that. But we got word from Nash Correctional, which is right there in the Rocky Mount area,
Right.
and their warden, of course, we knew their she was assistant warden at the time. She's warden now. We knew her very well because we had been incarcerated there.
Right.
She knew us.
Yeah.
There
All
was a
about what
good
you know.
it was a good relationship
Right.
even while we were there at the
Right.
prison. And so she invited us to come and talk with her and some of the program staff to just see if there were any possible ways of collaboration. And so we listened to them, and it was during this conversation that we didn't have a name for it yet, but it was during this conversation that we came up sort of with the concept of what we eventually would call our first aid reentry kit program. Nash Correctional was the first prison that we enrolled in this program. We now have 14, getting ready to enroll a 15th prison in this program. And essentially what we do is we put together a custom-made reentry kit for the individuals that are being released from these facilities. Case managers at the prisons, they go on our website, password protected page, they enter the information we need about the individual, and then we create the custom kit. We send it to the prison. The prison stores it until the person's release date, and then they actually get it so they walk out of prison with it. And BJ, that was very important for us that we figure out a way for them to actually walk out of prison with it, because we wanted them to know, first of all, we wanted them to know that you're loved and that you're valued
Right.
immediately.
Yeah.
And the second thing is we wanted them to have access to the tools that are in the reentry kit immediately, not wait for us to ship it to their house,
Right.
or in the case of being released unhoused, not even having an address to send it to.
Wow. Right. Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
absolutely. And so it was
Wow.
very important that we figured this
Wow.
out. How could we do that? And the best way to do that is to partner with our state correctional facilities.
Yeah.
Nash was the first. Like I said, we've enrolled 14 more and just have a great relationship with the Department of Adult Corrections, which is weird for us because we were incarcerated by this same system.
Right.
Some of us were even longer than I was.
Mm.
And but just being able to work with like-minded people, regardless of where they may be.
Right.
And so the kit has 5 main items. I'm going to save what we believe is the most important for last, but it includes a $25 gift card to a local restaurant. It includes an Our Journey t-shirt in their appropriate size. It includes a North Carolina DMV driver handbook, because getting your driver's license is really the first step to regaining your autonomy.
Yes.
It includes a reentry booklet called What to Expect Your First Days Free, which is how you and I have had some great collaboration.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that as well. And then the final piece is a reentry resource guide for whatever county that person is returning to. And this was so important because I was released to Guilford County, one of our state's larger counties,
Yes.
all kinds of reentry resources,
Yeah.
but nobody told me about any of it. Not the prison before I left, not my probation officer when I got there. And while I had a lot of support that we've already talked about, there were things that I still needed that I wish that I would have had someone I could reach out to.
Right.
And so that's what we want to solve. We want everybody, regardless of where you go in North Carolina, to know folks that you can contact that can help you. Now, obviously, Durham, Guilford, Mecklenburg, Buncombe, Wake, they're going to have a lot more than Dare or Macon or Swain. But what we've discovered is that there are people all across the state who care and who want to help.
Yes.
So let's make sure that our returning citizens know that information, regardless of what county. So we've spent the last 2.5 years, really right around 2 years, developing our reentry resource guides for all 100 North Carolina counties.
Wow.
We are 93 counties into that. We have 7. As you can imagine, there are some of our smaller counties.
Yeah.
One we're currently working on is Alexander County, which should be ready pretty soon. We have someone on staff that's all that they do. Well, not all they do, but that's the main focus of what they do is to continue to develop these and then to make sure that they stay updated. It's given us the wonderful opportunity to connect with people across the state because we don't just Google them, we call them, we talk to them. I get in my car and drive and interact with them in their communities and get to know them, and they'll tell us about somebody else we didn't know about, somebody you're not going to find online.
There you go.
Not even Google knows about.
Right.
And so that's been a wonderful thing that we've been able to provide.
Wow.
All of those are, by the way, all of those are free on our website as well. So if you're listening and you have somebody getting ready to return, you can go to our website, go to the Find Help Now button, and you should be able to find your county unless it's one of those 7 that we have left. But just this is to us one of the most important missing pieces in our own experience and in the shared experience with other people that are on this journey is finding who they can contact and get in touch with for support in their counties.
Yeah, when I saw that, and when we talked, I was like, that is a duh. And the fact that it's just specific to each county. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, because you and I talked about these small, obviously rural counties, and you talked about, because I'm from Martin County, and I think we talked
It's
about
just there.
Really? Okay.
Yes, Williamston. Yes.
Yeah. So, because you kind of talked about the fact if the resources aren't in Martin County, how you help the person navigate that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. Some of our counties, especially up there in that eastern corner of the state, and then the far western corner of the state, some of the counties, the resources are really thin. I told you we include a gift card for a local restaurant, and I believe there's a couple of counties. I think Gates comes to mind as one of those counties, maybe Terrell as well. They don't even have any franchise restaurants in the entire county. So it's really difficult for us to find a resource to include, a gift card to include. So if they don't have McDonald's, then what do you think that they might have in terms of reentry?
Wow.
There are people, we definitely list them when they are in the county. But one of the things that we also do is we, for example, up there in Gates County, you have Pasquotank County, Elizabeth City. That's kind of the hub for that corner of the state for reentry support. So we'll list them things in there for Pasquotank County. But here's the catch. When you're released on post release supervision, you're not allowed to leave your county without permission from your probation officer.
Right.
So we always include a disclaimer when we do that. Right? And we don't see this in any other resource material that we've seen from any other sources where they put this disclaimer. We don't want you to get in trouble with your probation officer, even if you're crossing county lines to get mental health support.
Right.
So we put that disclaimer in there and say, always check with your probation officer before leaving your county. So but most of the probation officers in those counties, they understand. They get it. You may have to leave the county
Yeah.
for the help that you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got to work with them. I
Right.
mean, you got to make it work as best as it will.
Absolutely.
So yeah, oh man, congratulations. You only 7 more to go.
7 more to go. And, I've
Oh,
got even better news. We were awarded a 400,000 DIT Digital Champion grant that's allowing us to
no.
do, yeah, it's allowing us to
Congratulations.
do a pilot program with our Davison Correctional partner. And so for the next 2 years, starting in January, all of the reentry kits that we send to Davison Correctional, which is in Lexington, around the middle of the state,
Okay.
in addition to the items I just mentioned, they're also going to include a smartphone device.
No.
One of the first things you got to have, you can't function in today's society without it. But the really cool thing is, in addition to coming with 90 days free service on these phones, which are all going to be brand new Samsung Galaxy A15s, it's going to have a preloaded reentry app called My Journey that we're developing right now with some partners at the Duke Justice Project and some other folks, where you'll be able to use your phone to identify resources in your county or whatever county you're returning to. And the even better news is, not only will it be preloaded on these phones for the next 2 years going to Davison, but we're going to make it available on January 1st on the Apple Store and the Google Play. So anybody can download this to their device. Again, returning citizens, friends and family, community, reentry support organizations. So we're really, really excited about that.
Wow, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
That's totally awesome.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
Yeah, I am so glad to have met you because I'm excited about this because I just want to be a part of that stuff, whatever it is. The other thing, the 2030 reentry, how's that planned for you? I mean, what do you, I mean, if people don't know what that is, it's called reentry 2030. It's 20, I keep getting confused.
That's
Reentry
correct.
2030. And it's a voluntary initiative across the country. States voluntarily participate in that. And basically what it is it's helping they're committed. The states are being committed to help returning citizens be successful by helping prepare them before they get out, have access to the internet and computers and
Right.
things and certificates, and just making it easier to walk out. Like, I used to say, why don't they have DMV at prisons? Because DMV works for the states. That's just like, duh.
Right.
I mean, this one, and so those types of things, getting them certified, have access to classes online and those things. And North Carolina is a part of it. And so I've looked at it, and North Carolina has a really good, based
Yes.
on everybody else. I mean, everybody else has really goals and objectives, but they've got metrics. This is what we want to do. This is how it's going to be measured, so we can tell whether or not we've done. So the state of North Carolina has stepped up to it. So how is
Absolutely.
rolling into what you're doing?
Yeah. So much of this I wish had been available when
Yeah.
I was released. I mean, it's amazing the strides our state has taken in just, the 3.5 years since I was released. We've got a long ways to go. And I
Right.
think all of us recognize that, even our partners within the Department of Adult Correction.
Yes.
But so Reentry 2030, Governor Cooper signed an executive order back in January that essentially combined the whole of government around reentry. So regardless of what Department of State government, they are supposed to be developing and implementing plans and programs to include reentry in their focus, whether that's the Department of Transportation or Health and Human Services,
Yes.
all of these, even revenue, all of these state departments are supposed to have a coordinated plan.
Yeah.
And that plan, the strategic plan for that was released a couple of months ago, and it is very intensive. Now, here's the thing, BJ. This is why it's so important for people to understand these issues and then vote accordingly, because this is based on an executive order, not legislation. So executive orders are subject to being changed and done away with completely. by a new administration. So this is not legislation that is come from our General Assembly. So we are ecstatic about what we see, but we also realize that we need to stay on top of our government and make sure that it's responsive, continues to be responsive. We're proud of Governor Cooper. We're proud of the Department of Adult Corrections, but we also know we can't take our eyes off the prize. We have to hold them accountable to this. So it depends upon us as citizens to do that. But the pieces are in place. This is epic. We understand that, and we're behind it 100%.
Yeah, it was impressive, that's for sure. They
Yeah.
got some stuff that they're doing. I was like, wow, yeah. So this can help her. And I was, as you were talking, I realized I had wrote a note to myself that I'm going to put that on the podcast, but your show, the link to that strategy for North
Absolutely.
Carolina.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'll do that as well. I hadn't even thought about that till just now, so I wrote that down because I'm old, so I probably wouldn't remember that. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about, like I said, Melissa with the Our Children's Place. She does work, and this is the
Yes.
only prison that she does this. Bringing individuals in, that volunteers, attorney and stuff, and I go in and I do my dog and pony show. And like I said, I love it. And they just ask a lot of really good questions. Yesterday they were asking, I mean, they've always asked questions. Sometimes, and Brian, you might have to correct me on this, but they were asking, this one guy asked me about, well, if I have like parts of a gun in the car with me, is that like being a problem or something like that? And I was like, yeah. And so I guess I guess I was a little taken aback that they were asking me questions that would immediately get them in trouble if they're pulled over by law enforcement. And I
Right.
just, and I was like, and I actually said to the guy, I said, you're doing stuff that's going to make it easy for them to get you. So,
Right.
so I was just kind of that just kind of helped me with, they know they're about to be released, but they're asking me questions about things that I personally, as someone that doesn't know, making the assumption, why would you want to be in a car with a friend of yours that has a gun?
Right.
You just got out. And I just, so just kind of help me understand. I don't want you to get in trouble, and you're just getting your freedom back, but you're
Right.
asking me questions that is going to immediately have, be problematic for you.
Yeah, and I think some of that is, obviously, I don't know every situation, but some
Right.
of that may be that they know they're returning to situations where there are going to be things that are out of their control,
Right.
and how that may impact them, whether, living in a house, somebody who
Yeah.
has a gun,
Yeah.
living in a house with somebody who does drugs. I remember when I don't think my mother and father have ever even gotten a speeding ticket. I mean, they're the most, upstanding citizens you could possibly
Right.
meet. But not long after I got out, I was still on probation. He wanted me to go with him up to a golf course. And I was like, sure, I'd love to spend time with my dad. And we got in the car and we're driving. And I just saw as we drove across the county line. And I said, you just committed a crime. And you made me commit a crime, because I'm not supposed to know it really wasn't a crime, but
Correct.
it could have been something that would have gotten me in trouble with my
Exactly.
probation officer. And he just didn't think about those things.
Yeah.
So, that's something that I would imagine some of those questions you
Yeah.
got were like, I know I'm going home to this situation. I know
Right.
there's the potential that it could get me in trouble.
Yes.
How do I kind of head that off?
Yeah. And you know what? That helps because I was
Yeah.
really, because all I was focused on was, don't do that, and the conversation that we're having, yes, people are going back into the community, some of them going right back into the communities that they
Yeah.
came out of, and they're going to be hanging around some of the people, whether they want to or not, that's just
Right.
how, that's life, that's their reality, and,
Right.
and then they've got to manage that. And then, I appreciate you talking about the mental health piece because that's got to be stressful. I mean, because you're going back to the community and those members that are there still doing that stuff are going to probably be looking at you a certain way, I would
Yeah.
assume. And then
Right.
also having an expectation that, okay, are you going to come back here with us, or are you going to be, all that now that you are trying to go right?
Right. There's so much pressure. And
Yeah.
when you combine that with just prison does something to your soul. It chips away at your self-worth. And
Mhm.
so you come out of prison with the expectation that people are going to be against you, even sometimes people of your own family, your own community. And it can be very unsettling, even in my situation. I can remember, going and interacting in public for the first few times. And it took me, when I got my driver's license, VJ, it took me about 2 months before I actually had the courage to go through a drive-through at a restaurant.
Wow.
Because I was afraid I would get up there and not know how to order. There'd be 25 different ways to order chicken. And,
Right.
we'd have all these cars behind me, all of them on their lunch hour. And it was just easier to park, go in, let people go in front of me while I looked at the menu and kind of collect my thoughts and figured out how to pay. Because, when I got locked up, you paid cash for going to
Right.
McDonald's. You didn't use a
Right.
card. Now everybody's using a card. How do you do this? How do you use this machine?
Yeah.
So there's so much that you have to kind of relearn, especially if you've been locked up for any amount of time, and it can
Yeah.
be overwhelming. So I imagine that a lot of the questions that you hear, certainly a lot of the questions that I hear when I go in,
Right.
are
Right.
around some of the things that people might otherwise just take for granted that
Right.
you should know this,
Right.
but there's
Exactly.
that worry and there's that concern. I tell
Yeah.
people, when you talk about going to prison and getting out of prison, you look at that and you say those are two totally opposite human experiences. And in many ways, in most ways, they are, but they share one thing in common, and that is fear. As you know, you're going to prison, there's that fear of the unexpected. And as you're counting down the days to your release, there's that fear of the unexpected.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine. I mean, I appreciate you talking about. I mean, it's not funny, but I was thinking some people have been in prison so long they thought apple was the only thing that you ate, right?
Yeah,
And they come back out. And I can't even imagine just coming back out. Some people have been there for a long, long, long time.
right.
It's just,
Technology. I mean,
oh my gosh.
my
Yeah.
first week out with a smartphone, I bet I took 20 accidental screenshots. I didn't know how to answer the damn thing, and it was just kind of overwhelming just
Yeah.
from that perspective alone.
Yeah, yeah, and then just trying to, yeah, and just that,
Right.
and everything else that has to go with it. Um, so you asked me to do some stuff for you, my 50 stuff. You got me plugged in to your
Yes.
thing. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
I was hoping we would definitely get to that. So I mentioned earlier that one of the components of our reentry kit is a reentry booklet called What to Expect Your First Days Free. It's 60 pages. It's meant to be brief because you might read War and Peace while you're locked up on your bunk, but you're not going to when you get out. So
Right.
it just kind of hits in some short chapters, some of the things that you're going to face from people who've been there and understand it, gives you some strategies, some tips. And we just published our third edition of that book. And between the second and the third edition, I met you, and it really opened my eyes to this issue of interacting with law enforcement, because people who are incarcerated have already had a bad experience in their minds anyway. It's
Right.
resulted in their incarceration. So,
Yes. Hmm.
but
Yep.
they're also more likely than other people to interact with law enforcement when they're released.
Yes.
If a crime occurs in their area, then that's the first, especially if it's what they were convicted of, that's the first,
Hmm.
they're the first people that law enforcement is going to come want to talk to. Certainly being pulled over just for random traffic stops. So talking to you, it really impressed upon me the need to give some sort of instruction and suggestions in our booklet on how to interact with law enforcement. So essentially, you wrote this chapter for us. We
You cleaned
really
it up though. Wait a minute. Let me push pause. You guys, when I saw, I was like, oh my God, you didn't really need me. I mean, you
oh
guys cleaned up my work. I mean, it's, I mean, when I got it back, I was like, y'all made me look really good, but you guys did a fantastic job with that. So thank you.
well, we love it. We love so much what you added to this booklet through this. And one of the things that I think really stood out to me the most was you talked about the goal is to get home safe. That's
Yes,
the goal for the officer as well, to get home safe.
yes.
And there are so many things, we watch TikTok and Instagram, and we see all these sensationalized videos of people interacting with law enforcement, and they're just doing stupid things to stir the pot. And one of the things that I really like that you point out is, if you feel like your rights have been violated or being violated during a traffic stop or during an interaction with law enforcement, there's a time and a place for you to handle that. But remain calm, remain respectful, handle the incident, and then when you leave, then you can call and you can file a complaint. You can, get the officer's badge number or whatever. But don't try to reverse Rodney King's incident and all of these other social incidents in one setting, because it's probably not going to end too well for anybody involved. But you also say, and I love this, if you have a good interaction with law enforcement, call that in too, and let them know about that as well, because that kind of sets the standard for what we expect as a community of our law enforcement. So just some really, really good advice. I learned a lot myself, and we're tickled to be able to pass that along to our clients.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. Really, I hope people can really benefit for that. And I appreciate that part, because that's a lot I talk about when I do my work. People don't realize that commending officers actually does have an impact, because of
Absolutely.
leadership sees like, oh, Officer Counsel got commended for this. So, and that might, they may get promoted, because that's the kind of leadership you want. You want that person
Absolutely.
who's doing the right thing to be the person that leads the rest of the folks at some point. And it just has
Absolutely.
an impact. But it also helps to get rid of the ones who, it doesn't necessarily, I think also too, I'm trying to let people know, because in this climate, a police officer can do something and immediately they want them fired. And that doesn't happen
Right.
in workplaces. I mean, it's like,
No.
don't do that again. I need a behavior change. Let's keep it
Right.
moving. Right. So just trying
Right.
to let people, it's so, yeah, thank you. I am honored and humbled to be there. So I think we're going to, because Melissa sent me the link. She showed it to me. She sent me a link of the book.
Yes,
So
it is on our website as well.
yeah, so I'll definitely have it on mine, and then, but
Yes.
all your stuff will be up there. So I'm excited, and I'm excited about, at least knowing you and the work that you're doing, and putting your name out there.
Well,
So
thank
look,
you.
yeah. So is there anything you want to close out with to say to folks?
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast. So much respect for you and what you're doing and the role you're playing in all of this. And I would just certainly encourage, first of all, if you've never considered the importance of second chances, to do that and to think it through. And if you're able to attend a reentry simulation, which we actually facilitate some of those, it'll give you a broader understanding of what it's like to face these challenges coming out of incarceration. But I really would like to close with just a special word to my brothers and sisters who may be listening to this, who have come home from incarceration, and just to tell you that we love you, that we support you 100%. Our journey is your journey. We're all in this together. And, to just encourage you, if there's anything we can do for you, our phone number, in addition to our website, is our phone number is 888-50-REENTRY. So it's pretty easy to remember. Just give us a call. Let us know how we can help you. But I want to tell you that if you're in the struggle, I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. We look up to you and we admire you for the hard work that you're doing to rebuild your life, and that there are people who want to help.
Thank you very much, and also too, to the folks that are out there that are returning. UN50 is a safe space too. If you need some assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out, and you can definitely get to me through Brian or directly. So I want you to know that this is a safe space as well. So thank you very much again, Brian, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And for those individuals who are first time, thank you for being first time. Hope you won't be your last time. And those individuals that have been supporting me over the years, thank you very much for always being there and supporting the work that we do. And as always, stay safe, stay well, peace.